Good evening, everyone. If you could please find your seats, I would like to call to order the special board meeting of August 9th, 2022 for the Board of Park District Commissioners of the Lake Bluff Park District. Can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Greenfield. Commissioner Lane.
Here.
Commissioner Raymore. Commissioner Reeder.
Here.
Commissioner Walsh.
Here.
Commissioner Weber.
Here.
And President Beeler.
Here. Before we go into the approval for the agenda tonight, I will give a very similar, but hopefully more truncated speech than I gave last time. We will have two sections on our agenda for tonight for the public to be able to make comments. The first will be the statement of visitors. We always have this on our agenda. This is the opportunity for you in the audience here tonight, as well as those who are on Zoom, to talk about items that are not on our agenda for this evening. The reason why we have this special meeting tonight is the second part for public comment, which will be following our very brief agenda, but this will be the opportunity for you to talk about your thoughts, your concerns, your questions, your opinions about the proposal before us. I'm going to ask, if you could, please don't take 2 bites of the apple. You will have that opportunity to make your public comment during the second part of this, so we do ask that when you are there for the statement of visitors, that this be the time that you bring up items that are not before us tonight as a board. I'll go back to my quick plea. Again, it will be 3 minutes per person. I ask that you refrain from clapping, applauding, cheering, swearing, or making any sort of comment about another person, about a commissioner, about a staff member. Nothing personal, please, tonight. We do want to listen. We want to make sure that everybody has their time. We're here tonight to listen for everyone who is here, as well as on Zoom. And the last thing as well, as part of your packet for tonight and as part of our agenda for this evening, we've included all of those emails that have been sent to us on the dedicated page. Once again, we have that QR code that's set up at the back so that you can have access to that information. But believe me, as a board, we see all these emails, we read all these emails, and that's very important to us. So going into that, may I ask for someone to please have a motion for approval of the agenda for tonight?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Greenfield. Yes. Commissioner Lane.
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore. Yes. Commissioner Reeder.
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
President Beeler.
Yes. Thank you, Marcia. Now we will go into the statement of visitors. Again, this is the opportunity for all of you, and we do welcome you to please stand and talk about items that are not on our agenda for this evening. It'll be to a 3-minute limit per person. And Jackie, are you going to be keeping time on that? So, okay, if necessary, we will do that. But again, it will be a 3-minute time for this evening. Please.
Thank you very much. My name is Sandy Hart. I'm a resident of Lake Bluff, but I also represent Lake Bluff on the county board. This is not a matter on the agenda for this evening, but this board, as well as the village board and the members of these boards for many years, have had the opportunity to work with Kurt Wolford. He's currently the executive director of Stormwater Management Commission. And I just wanted to announce that Kurt Wolford has received the 2022 Government Civil Engineer Award for the state of Illinois by the American Society of Engineers. This award recognizes professional accomplishments and unique contributions to the civil engineering profession or community. Lake County has been honored to receive $122 million in stormwater management funding due to the state's faith in Kurt Wolford and the extensive flooding issues that Lake County experiences. And just on behalf of the Lake County Board, I wanted to state that we are very proud to have Kurt Wolford as part of the Stormwater Management Commission team and to inform the residents of Lake Bluff as well as this board about this, his distinguished award. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to have a statement before us tonight? Seeing as none here in the gymnasium, I'll turn to whomever may be on Zoom tonight.
There are none.
There are none. Okay, thank you. I'll give a very brief report. First off, so that folks are aware, and if you attended the special meeting that was held last week, it was with regard to a citizens group petition to put a referendum on the November ballot. We have just been told that this was passed over to the village, who will be, I understand, certifying that and putting that on their ballot for this fall. We, as the Park District Board, want to have open and frank discussions. We want to hear from people in this community. We want to hear your opinions. We want to hear your concerns. We want to hear your memories, your thoughts about where you've been through this journey living here as a Lake Bluff resident. We're hoping that the conversation that happens from here on in up through November is considerate, and you have that same kind of ability to listen to other people. And we hope that this brings the community in a better place. The second item I'd like to bring up is that in keeping with that, and especially since tonight will be the second night of public opinion, we as the board would like to carry on with that discussion. As I brought up last time, we will be talking about the financial impact of this proposal for the golf course and the proposal for wetlands. We'll be talking about how that works with the operations of the Park District and how that fits in with the Park District mission. And then finally, the legal aspect of this. I keep using this overarching umbrella. That is our task force and all of the information that they've put together, as well as the public opinion that we continue to have. I hope you realize that this is not an easy decision. I keep hearing the word complex, and if you think this is easy, if you think this is a slam dunk, it does a disservice to our task force. It discounts all of the time, all of the energy, all of the work that they put into this. So in giving the task force the respect that they well deserve for the time that they put into this, to give all of you the respect that you deserve because you've been coming to these meetings, you've been writing us emails, you've been asking us to sit down and have coffee, you've been asking to be heard. That's the respect we want to give to all of you as we continue this discussion as a board. Last item that I do want to bring up is that Stormwater Management Commission on the 8th, yesterday, did ask for a letter of commitment from the Park District with regard to a FEMA grant that they have for 40 acre-feet of stormwater with the Lake Bluff Park District. Because this is, let me step back a little bit, there have been ongoing meetings with SMC. We're very fortunate that George Russell, who serves on the Parks and Beach Committee, attended these meetings, and Noah Mock was our attendee at the last meeting. As of the 8th, this was new information to us as a board, so we will step back. We'll ask SMC if there's a grant, a FEMA grant that they've put together to help us. Give us that information, show us those documents, give us that information and educate us on what they've asked for so that we can continue that conversation with them. As we brought up with the last meeting, we did submit a series of questions to SMC. We were sincerely hoping that they would answer them tonight, especially before our board meeting. I just met with John Beeler right before we came up here, and regretfully, we haven't gotten those answers yet. But when we do, we'll make sure that we share them with everybody. That being said, we'll go into community comments and written communications and correspondence. I'll quickly say, to try to save Nikki Walsh a voice and her breath, she's not going to read everything that's attached tonight. But as I said before, we do read these. That's why we include them now with our packet. If you do want to go through those, please as well. You can see what your fellow neighbors, your fellow citizens are saying. We do incorporate these into our thoughts, into our discussions, and we will be including these into the FAQs that we will have, again, up on our website. Is there anything else with?
I was just going to briefly mention, we did post the most recent PDF of all of those comments today on our website. It's about 155 pages total of all the comments, both written in the one of the previous meetings and received online. So just want to remind our residents that there are some sheets in the back. If you'd rather write your comment in instead of submitting it online, you can do that here tonight, or you can go back and submit it online. We're still accepting those. We've received numerous emails even this afternoon that will add and update that PDF as we go.
Thank you. Okay, and now we'd like to hear from you. Again, we are not going to be engaging in any sort of debate or Q&A. If you do ask a question, as you can see, we're all writing notes here, so we do value that very much. So please start. Thank you very much. Oh, and one last thing before you begin. Jackie at the end will be keeping time. She'll give you a 2-minute and a final wording of the 3-minute limit. We ask, please, just to keep an eye on that. Everyone has been very good so far. Everyone wants to have the opportunity to say their full 3 minutes. So please just be mindful of that. Thank you.
Good evening, Jennifer and commissioners, and thank you for hearing us tonight. My name is Al Treffs. I live at 119 Oak Terrace within the Lake Bluff Park District. I am a member of the was a member of the Land Use Task Force, but I am not speaking for the task force. I am the treasurer of Lake Bluff Open Lands, but I am not speaking for Lake Bluff Open Lands. I am also a 4th-generation golfer. I learned to play golf on a Donald Ross designed championship course in Chautauqua, New York, and that isn't what we have here. As I look forward to what the Lake Bluff Park District could be in 10 years, I think that it could be something very special. And I think that we have a very unique opportunity in front of us. The task force provided the park board and the district residents with a number of opportunities to consider, some of which are very difficult, complex, but potentially very rewarding in the longer term, and others are very easy, unrewarding, and unexciting, especially in the longer term. I believe that you should seriously be considering the alternative that the task force presented to you of a smaller sized wetland intertwined with a championship 9-hole golf course with world-class golf pro instructors, best-in-class training facilities, and a new clubhouse with a good restaurant and enough space for events. Let's make the Park District a golfer's bucket list destination, like the award-winning Sweetens Cove Golf Club or the course in Sewanee, both in Tennessee. or the Winter Park Golf Club in Florida, all of which have been redesigned in the last 10 years and are in the top 50 nine-hole golf courses in the world and the top 20 nine-hole golf courses in the US. I say let's teach our residents how to play, our children, our high school students, how to play better golf on a championship course. This option would give us not only really good golf, but it would also give us a better, more diverse environment, stormwater storage to help out our community, plus the ability to raise capital through selling wetland credits. Yes, it is the most complex and the most difficult option given to you by the task force, but it is also potentially the most rewarding in the longer term, with something for everyone. And yes, this initiative will require more funding. How much funding? Who knows? Until a decision is made and more of the details are available.
Thank
But
you.
let's just say it's a lot.
Al, thank you very much.
So I ask,
Al, you're at 3.5 minutes, sir.
okay.
Good evening. My name is Michael Barrett. My wife and I moved to Lake Bluff in 1978 and have spent most of our adult lives here. We love it. Currently, we live at 653 Mawman. I'm here not only to give my opinion of the future of the golf course, but also my experiences with Stormwater Management Commission, as I have extensive experience with them. There has been some bad information that's been circulated around regarding SMC, and I thought that I should speak since I've had such extensive experience. Over the last 10 years, my partner and I have worked with SMC on several parcels of land north of Lake Bluff. On 2 occasions, we've donated parcels to SMC for them to create wetlands. And SMC created a great high-quality wetlands where there were none before. Incidentally, some people may not know this, but SMC is charged with not only stormwater management, but they're in charge of all of the isolated wetlands in all of Lake County. I'm guessing there are thousands of those. They have a great deal of experience with wetlands. In addition to that, we've paid monies into a wetland bank, so I have experience with wetland banks. And I've even looked at creating a wetland bank, although it wouldn't compete with the Lake Bluff Bank if it was ever done. I believe the information they provided you about wetland banks is accurate and correct. In addition to that, we've worked with SMC on mitigating about 8 small wetlands on another piece of property. Currently, we're discussing with SMC a 25-acre parcel of wetland that we own that will likely become an area detention north of here, as well as a high-quality wetland. And after all these interactions over 10 years, I have nothing but the highest regard for SMC and Kurt Wolfert. Kurt will be a very creative and resourceful person for getting results that Lake Bluff would desire. I also understand the various sides to this issue. As a golfer, I'd like to play golf in town. As an environmentally sensitive person, I'd like it all open space. As a resident, I'd like to have the majority of the residents utilize this space instead of just 10% of the people. So my encouragement to you, the park board, would be twofold. One is to have the village take a look at utilizing some of the area north of the public works for this project. On aerial photos, it doesn't look like it's well utilized. 2, and most importantly, I would encourage you to spend some time and effort on a hybrid concept that includes golf, detention on wetlands, and potentially other amenities.
Thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate it.
Hi, my name is John Morrison. I live on East Prospect Avenue. I've heard an increasing demand to bring the wetlands decision to a referendum. I want to say a few words regarding why I think this is a bad idea for Lake Bluff. We all have opinions and biases. There are some who want the pool replaced so their kids can learn to swim. Others have environmental concerns, and yet others are concerned about the beach. We confuse each other with the talk of golf course deficits in the past, but ignore the ongoing cost of the pool and the beach. Lawn signs warn about higher taxes when the task force report clearly debunks that prospect. That is exactly why a referendum would be a popularity contest, pitting young against old, swimmers against golfers, neighbors against neighbors. We would see lawn signs all over town with nasty discourse on internet social sites. Both sides would argue their own set of facts through their friends and neighbors. A referendum would further tear this community apart, and I urge you to not let this happen. As the task force clearly laid out, this is a complex project with a variety of outcomes, none of which are 100% certain. The risks are, in my opinion, the risks considerably outweigh the rewards. Will all our voters take the time to thoroughly read the task force report and come to the ballot box with a well-informed vote? Or will self-interest and bias, or maybe pressure from our peer groups or media silos, convince us to vote one way or the other? We elected you as a board to set the mission and guide the process for our community. You now have a very thorough, unbiased report from the task force. You've patiently listened to questions and comments over the past weeks from all sides. You have more information regarding this issue than any of us individually. I trust that you have evaluated the facts and analyzed the upside and the downside. As elected public servants, one of your duties is to protect the interest of our taxpayers. You have done your best to inform and educate our residents, and for that, you are to be applauded. We now need you to do your job, the job you were elected to do. Vote on this matter. It's time for you to vote. We can all then adjust our lives and expectations to live with the verdict you offer. Thank you again for the time and effort you've invested to inform all of our residents.
Thank you.
Peter McGuire, 610 Lincoln. I've attended about 5 or 6 of these meetings, between the SMC meetings, task force meetings, and meetings with all of you. Let's talk about the facts. The facts are there's 3 golf courses within 3 miles of Lake Bluff. So for real estate brokers to say, their property values go up because there's a Lake Bluff golf course, if there are 2 golf courses within 3 miles of Lake Bluff, that cannot be a fact. The facts are, to compete with Deer Path, which has put a tremendous amount of capital into their golf course, and Veterans Memorial, which is owned by the federal government, and you can go play there some days for $30 and get a hot dog cart and play golf. They're the low-cost provider. There's a tremendous amount of competition that Lake Bluff has to encounter over the next 10 years. I have a financial group that finances golf course. As I presented before, it will take $5 million of taxpayer money to bring the golf course, clubhouse and golf course up to competition over the next 10 years. If we choose to ignore that and kick the can down the road, I'm at least mentioning it tonight because it's not in the packet that the task force put together. So right away, you start off with a $5 million taxpayer financed golf course. There's going to be intense future flooding that SMC and others have shown us over the last year and a half, because they're going to bring the water on a more intense basis from the other side of 41 to the Skokie River Valley. That will definitely increase flooding up and down the Skokie River. Our land here is worthless. Last week or the week before, people are saying it's 15. I've got 1 minute left, by the way. I've got, the land is worthless. It's in a floodplain. It's not worth 15 million to 25 million as people have mentioned. Therefore, look at the facts. You have a $7 million opportunity to build wetlands that will eliminate the chemicals and will bring the natural birds and flora, fauna back into what a wetlands would create. All right, you're also got 10 million in credits, which one gentleman has already said and others have validated is there. So to me, what we're saying to our constituents is you pay 5 million in over the next 10 years to keep this place competitive, or you take a $7 million opportunity to build wetlands and 10 million in credits. This is a no-brainer.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I can't stand and read at the same time. My name is Jan Snowbrick, and I have lived in Lake Bluff for 61 years. There are 5,500 residents in Lake Bluff. There are 10,700 residents in the Lake Bluff Park District. Both tax-supported units, while not coterminous, share an area that is both a geological wonder and a political, geographic nightmare. Green Bay Road is a subcontinental divide. Precipitation overflow falling on the east flows to Lake Michigan and ends up in the St. Lawrence Seaway. Precipitation overflow falling on the west side flows into the Skokie and ends up in the Gulf of Mexico. Skokie River flood water is held in its abutting wetlands until drier climatic conditions prevail. Humankind has near destroyed the once efficient, centuries-old hydraulic system. In 1996, our family of 5 moved into a new house on North Malman Avenue. We were here in 1962 when, through eminent domain, land was acquired to build out Blair Park facilities and the golf course, and in 1968 when they were open to the public. Beginning in 1997 and 19 years thereafter, I regularly attended board meetings, and I have learned. When the golf course complex first opened, the Park District had more land and facilities than could be supported by the population it served, and yearly tax receipts were not sufficient to offset the debt service taken on to build or properly maintain it. The jewel in Lake Bluff's crown, our beach, was grossly neglected due to lack of financial resources. The 1968-1994 financial records were found to be missing. Therefore, the extent of the accrued debt service for that time is not known. From 1995 until 2015, some of those elected to Park District offices let personal agendas guide fiduciary decisions. Thus, financing for the recreation center's construction follow pathways not grounded in best practices. Resulting debt service rose to near unmanageable proportion. In 2017, the golf course was successfully outsourced and is no longer a revenue sinkhole. Needed beach reconstruction continued to be ignored. Lake County Stormwater Management Commission presented a one-time only opportunity to build a stormwater catch basin on 95 on 145 golf course acres. In return, the Park District would eventually receive up to $1 million in wetland credits, but would have to take on more debt service to do so. The bottom line, the Lake Bluff Park District cannot afford to accept SMC's proposal as is, and needed beach reconstruction must be immediately addressed with attention given to cost-sharing multi-governmental agreements that, when instituted, will return our precious shoreline to an environmentally healthy state.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you for your service.
Hi, Erin Joslin, 217 Ascot. I've been to multiple meetings. I've listened in. I've listened a lot. I don't really feel heard. I don't know that a lot of us feel heard. So I thought I'll take a different attack this time. Let's talk data. I'd like to debunk the statement that the golf club is the most well-used asset of the Park District. In evaluating the usage, when we look at assets, it's crucial to look at the size of the properties that are being compared. The golf club is 149 acres and 70% of the Park District's own land. By comparison, Artesian is just 11 acres, under 5% of the district's land. And so, if we evaluate the relative usage of these assets and considering that the golf club is at, just for a moment, absolute maximum capacity, used with 2 foursomes on every hole, if this were the scenario, it would amount to about 144 golfers using 149 acres of land, or 1 golfer per acre. That is not vibrant, that is not well used. That's virtually empty. If Artesian, on the other hand, just as an example, was filled to the same maximum density as the golf course, it would have 11 people on it. So furthermore, we know the vast majority of the golfers are not Park District residents, not tax-paying. So of those 144 said golfers on the course, the odds are about 30 of them are tax-paying residents of the Park District. So if you think about how much of that land is then used by Park District residents who own it, it works out to be on average, there's 30 residents using 149 acres of our land, or 1 resident for every 5 acres of golf course land. And so if Artesian had that same density, it'd be filled to capacity with 2 people. It is not our most utilized park. It is valuable land, and the usage of it must be reconsidered. Considering our beach is falling in, put the pool aside for a moment, we have debt that continues, including the debt that the golf course incurs. It's negligence for us to not consider the opportunity that sits in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. Tanya Sharman, 300 East Blodgett. Sorry. So I live in East Lake Bluff on over 5 acres, and a good deal of my property is not turf grass, but prairie, wetlands and dry prairie. And I've restored it with my dad. When I moved there, it was grass, and we've restored it back to its natural state. He also has a 20-acre prairie on his lot in East Lake Bluff also. The care of that portion of my land is extremely small. Not a lot of work goes into it. I spend more money paying someone to mow my grass every week than I do in the maintenance of the prairie and the wetlands. I've heard people say on social media, various comments on websites in town, that we will need to care for this prairie preserve in perpetuity. The idea that is somehow scary to some people, that something will we need to care for in perpetuity, makes no sense. Everything we own or manage as a park district, we need to care for in perpetuity. Everything, all the land we own. And so, you know, whether it's a patch of grass, a roof on a building, irrigation system, golf course, it costs money. A prairie is a minimal cost to the community to take care of. I might suggest that we look at this differently and consider that the land will be protected in perpetuity rather than be a risk in perpetuity. We know that the rain and flooding is getting worse. Protecting and keeping this land as wetlands, as it was 100 years ago, is the right thing to do for our environment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, Ned Jovanovich, 348 East Woodland Road. I'm here not to talk to you or to speak about the virtues of a golf course or a wetlands. I think that's been covered, and I don't think there's anything I can add to that. But I am here to talk to you about the funding issue, which I think is an important issue for the residents of this village. Recent village presentations outlined a need for approximately $30 million for flood infrastructure. We also have a potential need of $8 million for pool renovations and beach reconstruction. I'm not here to even discuss the flood infrastructure, even though I do believe that that is all intertwined. But I am here to talk about the $8 million shortfall for the pool renovations as well as the beach reconstruction. So I have two questions for this board, and I have yet to hear them. I would like to know, what is your plan for the funding of the pool renovation and beach reconstruction, and why haven't we heard it? I think it's critical for residents of this town, if they are to form an educated opinion on this matter of wetlands and golf course, that we need to know what your plan is. I heard at the beginning of this meeting, we want to hear open and frank discussions. So here's my question. Where are the open and frank discussions on how you will fund the pool renovation and the beach reconstruction? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Perry Walcott. I live at 115 Sunset Place in Lake Bluff. My family and I have lived here since 1978. I support a referendum, but I'm concerned that there's incomplete information. And I also believe that if I don't know what's in the FEMA grant, I don't know that you do either. But I would hope that in the discussion or negotiation with SMC that you will address the following issues. The first is the wetland mitigation, the sale of the acre feet. It's going to go into an auction, and although the task force identified 120 to 150,000 as the value of an acre foot, when it goes to auction, you don't know what it's going to be. I would hope that in your discussions with SMC and the county that they will augment if the negotiated price is less than the 120,000. They come up with it so that you will receive the minimum amount. If the auction is greater, then it goes directly to the board. Also, the next part is I think SMC should be financially and totally responsible for the planting of the wetland area. They should maintain the plantings, they should maintain the stream bed, they should do everything associated with the wetlands until the Corps of Engineers inspects and approves it. And that is at about the 3-year point at which the Park District would take over the maintenance of the land, the wetlands, forever. And last, it is associated with the huge amount of material that's going to be generated in the creation of the wetlands. I've seen numbers of over 400,000 cubic yards. Regardless, whatever material is excess is going to be placed on the remaining 50 acres of the remaining park, or the Park District, the golf course area. I think that the board's position with SMC should be that no construction can occur until the plans and specifications for both the wetland area and the remaining 50 acres, they should be final and it should receive your approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Lynn Moosman. As we know all too well, that in 1968, a golf course was built upon a naturally occurring floodplain or wetland. Since then, whenever there is significant rainfall, this parcel of land, which no longer functions as a floodplain or water retention area, also failed to function as a high-functioning golf course because it floods. When the golf course is flooded, we spend time, money, and absorb lost opportunity costs from revenues that is lost due to the fact that we cannot play golf on a partial, altered, flooded floodplain. Later, soon after that, after the flooding dissipates and the course is dry, we pour thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of gallons of water and chemicals back onto this land for the sole purpose of keeping the fairways manicured. On a more important note, actually, it is unethical, immoral, and I believe it is indefensible to overlook the use of upwards of 50,000 gallons of pesticides, herbicides, and insecticides every year on an average 18-hole golf course. This piece of data came from a study ordered by the New York Attorney General's office in 1995, and they called this study the Toxic Fairways. The purpose of the study was to enlighten the public of the toxicity of golf courses and golf course maintenance. The study noted the fact of toxic drift, emphasizing the danger of the chemicals to nearby residents, in particular children. whose developing brains and bodies are extremely susceptible to chemical toxicity. It also proven that these chemicals contribute to the development of various types of cancer and irreversible neurological disorders. Further to the direct application of these chemicals on our land, there is inevitable seepage onto and in our ravines and our Great Lake. I'll hurry. As parents and leaders of this community, we have a moral and ethical obligation to consider this as a heavily weighted factor, perhaps one of the most important factors as you make this decision that you're looking at today. We have the opportunity here to make a decision, a difficult one, but one that contributes to the solution of many local problems, as well as being municipal leaders and forefathers of our future that contribute to the worldwide efforts in addressing global warming. Or we can perpetuate this cycle of folly involved in fighting nature to maintain a golf course on a floodplain that has the propensity and natural inclination of returning itself to being a wetland. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sandy Hart. I serve as the chair of the Lake County Board and I'm the county board representative for Lake Bluff. I've had a few questions from residents about how the idea of wetlands and wetland mitigation banking came about in discussions between the Lake Bluff Park District and Stormwater Management Commission. The Lake Bluff Park District brought up the idea of wetlands and wetland banking to Stormwater Management Commission and not the other way around. In January 2020, former Executive Director Ron Salsky requested a meeting with Stormwater Management Commission to explore wetland credits as a potential revenue source for the Park District, and to see if the creation of wetlands could help with the flooding of the viaduct and the golf course. The meeting took place in late January of 2020, and Village Administrator Drew Irvin attended as well. While they found that the creation of wetlands would not help with the flooding of the viaduct, they did discuss whether a wetland mitigation bank could help to offset the long-term capital needs of the Park District. I spoke with Drew Irvin, and he remembers attending that meeting with SMC and Ron Salsky and the conversation that occurred. 1 year later, in January 2021, SMC approached Lake Bluff Park District to discuss compensatory flood storage for a regional stormwater project that we're discussing today. Fast forward to March 15th, 2021, the Park District Board, and this is from the minutes, commissioners agreed that staff should continue discussions with SMC and determine how this project could help the golf course. President Mossberger suggested bringing this matter to the Facilities and Programs Committee when further details are known. I don't believe that follow-up meeting has ever occurred with the Facilities and Program Committee. On April 26, 2021, the concept of wetland mitigation banking was brought up again in a meeting between Sam Beckman, Lake Bluff resident and owner of Emergency 9 Golf, Noah Mack, John Beeler, Kurt Wolford, and Ashley Strelchek. According to Sam Beckman, and as a result of that conversation, he created at no charge to the Park District, but at their request, the concept plan of an 18-hole course played on 9 holes to allow for wetlands that could be utilized for wetland mitigation banking. I hope this is helpful for the board and residents to understand where the idea of wetlands and wetland mitigation banking came about. Lake Bluff Park District reached out to SMC to better understand how the reintroduction of wetlands and wetland mitigation banking could help with flooding on the golf course and with the long-term capital needs of the Park District overall. For this particular project, SMC is interested in 40 acre-feet of compensatory flood storage for a regional stormwater project, and that storage, whether it be a detention basin or wetlands or anything in between, can exist on Navy property or Lake Bluff Park District property or a combination of the two. I'm happy to answer any questions residents may have. I can be reached at smhart@lakecountyil.gov. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Nancy Crutcher, East Blodgett. Thank you for letting us speak. I believe that now is a rare moment in time where the sacrifices of a few can greatly benefit many. In choosing to play golf elsewhere, you would be benefiting the entire community, which includes the following among them: our neighbors to the north, some of whom are military families. experiencing repeated flooding. Elementary school kids who currently share their playground with a parking lot. Soccer players who would actually have a playing field. Families and people of all generations who like to walk and bike through nature, fish, picnic, cross-country ski, ice skate, and more. Beach people and pool people who can see improvements made using the revenue generated by the project and not by increasing our taxes. Our dogs who in a dog park may pee anywhere they wish. Pollinators will return to an area they once populated. Mother Nature, who clearly wants her land back, will certainly benefit. Stormwater Management Commission, who in seeing Lake Bluff's willingness to be a good neighbor, will look fondly upon us if and when we seek their help in the future. The sacrifice of a few to help so many, surely this is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Todd Porter, 456 Sunrise Avenue. So the underlying rationale for government provision of parks, which is you guys, is that they are what economists call public goods. What that means is that there's something we can all enjoy together, and it's a pain to keep anybody out. That's the way Artesian Park is. Those 11 acres are used by many of us for different purposes at the same time. And it would be expensive to patrol the park to keep people out who didn't pay. And it's because those are public goods that it makes sense to fund them through taxes on all of us and govern them through government responsive to those taxpayers. That's you again. To provide public goods is exactly why you exist. But the Lake Bluff Golf Club is not a public good. It's a private good. Only a few people can use it at the same time, and you have to pay $50 or $60 or however many bucks. It's not freely available for all. It's a private good provided by a public entity, and that leads to two problems. As owners of a golf course, we are competing in a private market with many other private clubs in the golf business, as well as a range of other better funded municipal, county, and federal golf courses in the immediate area. We are trying to compete with well-funded public and private entities in a capital-intensive business, and we will continue to need ongoing investments for the golf course to attract outside golfers, which is what the golf club requires for the majority of its revenue. The bottom line is if we stay committed to the golf course, we will perpetually be a small, struggling public course, reluctantly throwing money into the golf course in order to keep it competitive with better financed public and private courses. That is the perpetual risk. On the other hand, if the possibilities of the preserve are realized, then those 149 acres of private use land would be returned to the public. 100 acres of wetlands through which for perpetuity we would be able to freely walk, bike, ski, frisbee golf, fish, and educate ourselves about the environment. And we should not fear returning that land to its natural state for perpetuity. Managing that 149 acres for all our benefit is your perpetual purpose. That is the function of the park board, and you are a perpetual entity. And the wetlands are the perpetual purpose of that piece of land, which the flooding 2 weeks ago demonstrated. And of course, there's also 50 additional acres of parkland, which would be your responsibility for perpetuity, and will double our current public parkland, in which we could play soccer, field hockey, lacrosse, football, mini golf, walk our dogs, have recess, learn, skate, ski, sled, mountain bike, picnic, camp, and go to concerts. Please return this land from special private use to the public good.
Thank you.
My name is Mary Scanlon Hogan, and I am a licensed professional geologist and worked in the environmental industry before staying home with my two kids. Margaret's 5 and William is 7. First and foremost, I would like to see the conversation with SMC continue. There are numerous environmental and ecological benefits of converting the existing golf course into a wetland. Wetlands support diverse ecosystems. They are among the most productive ecosystems in the world, and they're filled with a large variety of microorganisms, aquatic and terrestrial plants, insects, fish, birds, mammals. These wetland plants and animals filter the excess runoff water, absorbing pollutants and chemicals from roadway surface water. Wetlands store carbon with plant structures in soil rather than releasing it into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. In fact, below ground carbon storage is the most stable reservoir for carbon. Native plants found in wetlands are highly efficient at absorbing carbon dioxide through photosynthesis and moving it deep into the roots to be released and trapped in the soil. The bigger the root system, the more carbon dioxide trapped. Typical golf courses have root systems of about 4 to 5 inches deep compared to that of native wetland plants with root systems 6 times as deep, and that's for saturated soil. That's significantly more potential carbon storage than the golf grass offers, or even the trees that are on the existing golf course. The lush green grass of a typical golf course is full of pesticides, herbicides, and insecticides, many of which are carcinogenic or cancer-causing, and were likely applied preventatively rather than in response to a specific concern. In the toxic fairway study that was mentioned earlier, 52 responding golf courses reported overusing 200,000 pounds of dry pesticides and close to 9,000 gallons of liquid pesticides on their courses annually, translating into 7 pounds of pesticides used per acre per year. I imagine that the number of chemicals used on the Lake Bluff Golf Course is similar, but we haven't been able to access the specific types of chemicals and volumes used. Conversion to a wetland would significantly decrease the volume of carcinogens poured onto our park district properties. This would result in cleaner water and air for our local community, not to mention the Lake Bluff Elementary School where my kids go to school adjacent to the golf course. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Lake Bluff, Gail Gamrath, 660 Green Bay Road. Our final meeting in this great town with great people. You said you wanted to hear people's stories, so I thought I'd share a quick one. In the 80s, both boys and girls golf teams at Lake Forest High School used the Lake Bluff Golf Club as their home course. One of the magical wins of being on a high school golf team was leaving school and playing all of these beautiful courses on fall afternoons. We would come in from our rounds and get clubhouse burgers and fries, practice with the guys' team, and when our coach was not looking, we'd drive the carts around to shag up our balls. My senior year, we were looking at placement as state contenders, only to lose the whole second half of our season because our course, Lake Bluff Golf Course, flooded. It was a lake, much like a few weeks ago, only worse. Our coach scrambled to find places for us to play, practice. She finally gave up and we didn't make state. Our picture in the Lake Forest High School yearbook is in a boat on the front lawn, giving a nod to the second half of our season in 1986. The Lake Bluff Golf Club is a shell of what it used to be in the 80s. The girls' team has already aborted and gone to Deer Path in the same town as the high school. I would think the boys' team would want to do the same, to be at a course they are proud to host visiting teams with a real clubhouse that can offer more than a bag of chips, a course that has a plan for future capital improvements, and that does not put them at risk of losing part of their season the next time Brant Miller tells us that storms are on the horizon. We need a vision. Finally, since we're no longer asked for a vote, I wanted to share why I see this as an important opportunity. In a time when the town may need to make some decisions or have even higher taxes, this opportunity provides solutions for it. I see all that can be gained by these new assets that will replace the golf course. If I were a young parent, I'd want to know that Lake Bluff Elementary could have a soccer field, a t-ball field, and access to a lot new science curriculum. I believe all of the Lake Forest Sender elementary schools have access to such facilities. Just think of the after-school sports on those 50 acres. The park district could teach fly fishing, kayaking. We could mountain bike on the dirt that we're so worried to move. This is a vision. I see a team of community members helping to decide what else can go on those 50 acres. Could we make a skate park again because we finally have the funds to make it nice? Could we have a destination clubhouse that people would want to rent out for parties and can host many Lake Bluff events? The possibilities are endless. There would be a loss of our money-eating, flooding golf course, but we would be gaining so many assets that our community and children would benefit for years. It is about choices, and I think we would be trading up from one sport that few use to many sports at the same time, gaining finances to keep taxes in check and save a beach and pool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lake Bluff. Peace out. I'm taking my sign down tonight. Have a good night.
Good evening. Kate Briand, 610 Lincoln Avenue. I'm a long-term resident. My family moved here in 1971, and I'm also a village trustee. So I'm speaking in my capacity as both. Actually, I'm glad Gail brought up 1986 because I remember it. Hi, Jan. My dad, our house growing up was adjacent to Artesian Park, and my father and I were standing in knee-deep water because the ravine had overflowed. At our last village board meeting, our village engineer gave a presentation following the flooding that occurred after the storm in July. And it was an interesting graph that he put up. It started in 1900 to today. 100-year storms virtually were non-existent in the 20th century. They occur very frequently now. In fact, the amount of rainfall that qualifies for a 100-year storm event has recently been changed. The golf course will become less playable more often. And we've heard eloquently from people, a geologist, about the benefits of wetlands. So I'm not going to repeat that. But I'm going to speak to you now for my last minute and a half as a fiduciary, from one fiduciary to a whole dais full of them. Someone earlier mentioned that you have not answered the question about how you're going to pay for things. There's only one way to do it. You're going to do what the village is going to do. You're going to raise people's taxes if you say no to this. But even if you say yes, you're still going to have to do that because you have a beach that is basically gone. You have ravines that are eroding from these storms. You have a pool that looks more or less the same as it did in 1973 when I learned to swim there. We are a tiny village and a relatively small park district. How much longer can we afford to go on like this and maintain something that is not an asset, but a liability? So some of you ran on saving the golf course, I understand that, but now you're sitting in that position as fiduciaries, and you have to make the decision that is right for them from a tax standpoint. Because the tax man is going to come again and again and again. That deep tunnel project that's coming to ameliorate the flooding under the viaduct, it's not going to be free. So you have to ask yourselves, how much more of a burden are you willing to put on the people of your park district and of this village who pay twice? So you can keep a golf course that is at best average and a clubhouse that frankly is barely average? I just don't think that that is what a fiduciary should do. And I know because I am one for the village of Lake Bluff. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Cheryl Becker, and I've lived in Lake Bluff since 1985 when I moved here to oversee the investment managers for $6 billion for Ameritex pension fund. And so I know that it's important to have budgeted proposals that address the interests of everyone who's affected in our community, which includes the people who use the roadway, the people whose houses flood, the golfers, the taxpayers, the families, the school children, everyone. There are two issues that intersect in our considerations, and they've been echoed many times here. flooding on 41 and the adjacent housing, and capital needs. The wetland prairie is a solution toward both of those problems, and people are arguing in some cases, beyond discussion, that we have competing plans, but actually we don't. We don't have proposals, so we have arguments. As soon as we have budgeted proposals, we'll have informed discussions. We're missing two crucial pieces of information that require the park board to further exercise due diligence and to act. We need a park board projection of capital needs and funding, as other people have mentioned, and we need an actual wetlands plan to discuss. In the absence of a capital plan for the beach, the pool, and the golf course, even this issue has become, I believe, excessively politicized. We have some idea that we have millions in capital needs. Just how many millions? And where is that money going to come from? So once we know the park board's projections to fix the beach and the pool and the long-term capital needs for the golf course, we have a context for considering the wetland. We do not yet have an actual proposed plan for restoring the wetland to its original use and designing new recreation on the upland prairie. We have a lot of indications, such as SMC would pay for it, that we could sell credits, that the dirt would be moved within the property and not trucks hauling it on our roadways. But we don't even have a draft plan until the board works one out with SMC. To truly assess risk, we need to know a plan. For example, very understandable concerns about maintenance costs that someone brought up at last meeting, referring to the Bartlett wetland.
Thank you very much.
I urge you to
Thank you.
continue your due diligence and meet with SMC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. I'm Kari Skinner, and we have lived in the West Terrace for 30 years. I just wanted to correct why the girls' golf team from the high school left Lake Bluff Golf Course. I was golf mom for 2009 through 2013. The reason the girls left was that the boys took over all the time, and the girls didn't get to play time. So they went over to Deer Path, and right now I know several of the girls that are on that team, and they would like to be back at Lake Bluff because it's a longer course, it's much more competitive than Deer Path, which is such a short yardage. And you know, we don't need a Exmoor at Lake Bluff Park District, but we definitely need a better clubhouse. And it would be nice to have the days when Kenny was there and, you know, you could have lunch, breakfast, whatever. But if that could be revitalized in some way and rebuilt, that would be great. But the reason the girls left was because the boys had basically control of the course. So anyway, I just wanted to correct that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brooke Gottschall, live at 501 East Center in Lake Bluff. Lake Bluff golf member for many years, Saturday tee time person for many years at Lake Bluff. Lake Bluff golf course is not the best. The clubhouse is kind of crappy, but it's a clubhouse and it's a golf course and it brings people together. 33,000 rounds is a lot of rounds of golf. That's a lot of joy. That's a lot of happiness. That's dads playing with kids, grandparents playing with grandchildren. That's a way we bring people together to do things as a group. And that's what I hope what the Park District does. I know it's a complex decision that you have to make And I just wanted to get up here and give the pros, because most of the speakers up here are giving the cons against the golf course. And just remember that credits are credits. You're going to destroy wetlands someplace else. So it's kind of a whitewashing. And keep in mind that all the joy that that golf course creates. Parents' times with kids is very important, and that's what it does for this town. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Skip Martin. I've been living in this town since 1970, live over on the East Terrace. And thank you. Thank each and every one of you for all the dedicated time and hours that you put into this position as elected officials. And I think it's important as elected officials that we take a step back and take a look at what the Lake Bluff Park District mission is. And that mission is as responsible stewards of the community resources. And the Lake Bluff Golf Course is a community resource. Nobody's put you in charge of looking at a 145-acre vacant piece of land that somebody all of a sudden donated, is now asking you what is the highest and best use for that property. Is it a preserve or is it a golf course? No, this has been a community resource for 54 years. And it's your job as stewards to protect and enhance a community resource, not to take it away and give it to somebody else. Lake Bluff is a community. It's not socialistic. This is a community. You're also, well, enhance the community through recreational experiences. Recreational experiences are done on a golf course, an existing golf course, one that you're supposed to be responsible stewards for. So I just ask that you uphold the mission that you've been elected to uphold. You've got all the information, vote on it, because at this stage right now, the outcome isn't, somebody's gonna be unhappy. Somebody's gonna be unhappy. So I think it's time to vote and not to kick this thing down the road much longer, and continue to uphold the community resources through and provide recreational experience in a fun, safe, and healthy environment. Thank you again for everything that you folks have done.
Thank you.
Hi, Dave Anderson, 517 East Center. I happen to be one of 4 generations who've enjoyed the Park District. And it's pretty incredible that my parents, both of my grandparents enjoyed the Park District. We raised our kids. I headed off and then came back. And if I think of the joy that I've had at the Park District, it ranges from the beach, playing golf with my mom for her 80-year-old birthday, picking up pickle, playing paddle. I have some of my tennis buddies, Artesian Park. This is an incredible resource that the Park District manages as employees, thank you, John and team, and volunteers. It's beyond incredible, Jennifer, what all of you guys do for this asset. What has happened here is you guys have done a beautiful job to be able to get an independent task force to do what I would say from a business development person, which was the career I was in. You got a preliminary bid to say, yep, you got the task force to say, what an incredible opportunity you have. And you got to the preliminary bid and you're saying, it's time to go on. Now the time from a business development perspective is let's get to the next stage and let's get to a final bid. And let's get the right team together to be able to do the steps we need to. And let's figure out how we engage the community further and bring all the players together so that we work as a team to get to an amazing decision for the future of this community. I am happy to participate and add my services. We have all kinds of community people who are ready to jump on board. And this doesn't have to be a me versus you, this can be an us. And this is an incredible resource. Thank you guys for your time. And I'm so excited for what's next, for how we can come together as a community and get to an awesome decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm falling apart. Dick Driver at 726 Birch Road. And I wasn't planning on talking tonight, so pardon if my thoughts are not quite well organized. But I was playing tennis on Sunday afternoon at Artesian. There were 4 of us there. That was it for the entire park. There were 4 of us playing tennis. There were no kids on the playground. I don't know why, but that was it. The same day I drove past the parking lot at the golf course and it slammed. Today, the parking lot was slammed and there was 1 car at the open lands just south of 176 near the waste treatment plant. So I think the truth is there's a lot of people, and it's true on a lot of days because we live near the lake, there may be 20 cars parked there on any given day, but there'll be 70 or 80 at the golf course. The point is that a lot of people use that golf course. A lot more people will use the golf course than any of the options that have been presented. You're not going to get 70 cars parked there, you know, on a weekday with people walking in a wetlands. So I mean, for the overall amount of usage of the land that's available, the golf course is providing a very useful asset that a lot of people use, not all of them residents, but a lot of people use, and they use it more than the swimming pool. There's more cars at the golf course than at the swimming pool or the beach. So if we lose it, you know, it's a lot of people that just, maybe we can go somewhere else, but it's not going to be the same. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, John Schall, I live out in Scranton, and obviously I'm a golfer, and we came here from Lake Forest, and when we lived in Lake Forest, I played Lake Bluff Golf Course. I played Deer Path a little bit, but as someone previously mentioned, it's a little shorter, and it's very busy. One of the things I like about Lake Bluff Golf Course is I have a 7:22 tee time on both mornings. On the weekends, I play Wednesdays. I can go out there and play Lake Bluff in 4 hours. You go out to Deer Path, it's shorter, it's a little bit more congested, and it's just not as much fun to play. I mean, Lake Bluff might not be a world-class golf course with a world-class clubhouse. That's fine with me. I don't need that. I just need a place to swing my clubs and maybe swear a little bit. I don't know. And I had some written comments, and it was about the environment and the tennis that we're playing for and against, but it occurred to me while I was sitting there that, you know, you guys are smart folks, you've heard it all, we're all saying the same things, and we elected you to make this decision. So I trust that you guys are hearing it all, you'll weigh it appropriately and make the decision that's best for our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I didn't expect to speak tonight. I spoke a couple weeks ago. My name is Maureen Brebner. I live at 436 West Witchwood Avenue in Lake Bluff. I'm not a golfer, at least not since college, and that's been too many years to remember. But my father-in-law, Alex and Adeline Brebner, were golfers and scratch players, as well as my husband and his twin brother, and as well as a son and daughter of the 4 kids that we have. I spoke 2 weeks ago, and one of the concerns, big concerns I had was the performance bond that the gentleman indicated they had. We know there was a performance bond with the Harrison Center, and that was a fiasco. So the performance bond on the making this golf course a preserve is a different issue that I think can have nefarious possibilities. The other thing is to say that these signs that are going around the community, no new taxes and yes to the preserve, I think is fraudulent. To say that there's no new taxes is ridiculous. To think that the preserve wouldn't require maintenance is unbelievable. My husband's twin brother, that's a golfer, that moved 29 years ago to Palatine, said they had the same situation with these ecological plants that are not taking root. And if the ecological plants on this preserve do not take root, then the money coming back as far as a tax incentive, basically in 7 to 11 years, would not be given to you. It has to take root, and these ecological things are leveling that field and basically tearing up the golf course. It's not going to do anything as far as the water system goes, and it's just absolutely absurd to me that there can't be a cost effectiveness. Look at what the beach takes in, look what the skateboard takes in, and do a cost and risk analysis on what the expenditures are for the other areas that are involved, basically, and what you're getting with the golf course. If you destroy this treasure, just like Harrison House, you're not going to get it back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Don Fawcett. I live on Witchwood Lane in Lake Bluff. Just like to make one point about the perception of how busy the golf course is versus other activities. Golf by its nature is somewhat limiting because it's a 4-hour activity or 5 hours. So when you see cars in the parking lot, they're there for 4 or 5 hours. Whereas a park, pool, other areas, people go in and out, you can do it in a half hour. To me, that's one of the benefits of converting this to a wetlands, is that somebody who works, maybe working from home now, could go up and take a walk in the park for a half hour and go back and go to work. Can't really do that with golf. You pretty much have to plan your day around it. I do play golf, I don't play a lot, but one of the reasons I don't play a lot is because you really have to plan and it takes a lot of time. So there may be the perception that it's busier, but I think if you think about it, other activities, there's just more exchange of people going in and out. It could be the same number of people. And then I just also like to echo the points been made about planning and looking ahead. We know that there's $6 to $8 million of funding required for the pool and the beach. It's been discussed many times. It seems like that has to be considered in total with the opportunity that's before us today. I think to make a decision on this, and let's say keep the golf course, and then a year from now go back out to the public and say, we need to raise your taxes by $6 to $8 million, is not going to be appreciated. This is a one-time opportunity, as I understand it. It's not like 2 to 3 years from now we could go back to SMC and say, hey, now we would like to do this. So I think that's a very important point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Archie Fletcher. I've been a resident. I live in Park Lane in the West Terrace. I have been a resident here for 44 years. I served in the park board for 6 years. And at that time, I was the chairman of the golf committee. I see what the golf course is doing now. I have friends that play, my son plays there, and the management is just not well liked that you hired. I just wished that you would go back to having a local person run it and also have local people promoting its use, such as it's a tremendous place for a golf outing And if you could turn 2 of those a month or 3 a month, your revenue source is going to be solved. You have to make an investment for it, yes, but it'd be done. Also, I just see the wetlands as a money grab to get about $6 million or whatever it is, so you can take care of the beach. When I was on the park board, I don't know all the details, but we spent about $5 million to fix the beach, and you can see what happened to it now. It needs it, and I just can't see, without any education or finance figures or engineering data, how you can do something, put breakwater in like you should, like Lake Forest did, unless you go probably $10, $12 million. If you want to have the beach, you're going to have to pay the money. Otherwise, it's just going to erode. And also, the wetlands, to me, that's another name for a swamp. I like, when I go down Route 176 a couple of times every day, and when I look at the 60 feet that they fixed by taking the buckthorn out of it, and they have the little wetlands in there you see a little swamp. So the wetlands to me is one huge swamp that we're going to have. I like looking at the green, and I hope everybody else here wants to look at the green instead of a swamp.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mark Dewart, 454 Park Lane in Lake Bluff. I've got 3 comments, facts, and data pieces here. Mr. Treffs pointed out earlier that it is potentially possible to have a golf course and to have wetlands and to have both of those. We do have in the Chicago area a very gifted eco-golf architect who, for the sum of $13,500, is willing to work with the Park District to provide a concept plan and budget to be able to do so with a 9-hole course. This proposition would include many of the attributes and things like that that we have talked about in terms of walking paths and things like that for the wetlands. Second of all, I'd like to say that we're faced with, and it's the elephant in the room, we're obviously faced with 2 really, really valuable alternatives here, whether it's the golf course or it's a wetland proposition. The gap here has been identified by a couple of people, and I won't pursue it in length, but that is the funding. The funding issue is the elephant in the room. If not the wetlands as a source of the money, the funding for the pool and for the beach, where? That was not part of the remit for the task force. We did not pursue it. So we're looking to you to provide that critical piece of information, that critical gap that hopefully will allow the public to figure out which way. We heard people talk about fiduciary responsibilities and those kinds of things. The last thing is there's a published report in the Tribune this afternoon that said that the Park District's legal team had advised the board not to certify the citizens group petition, believing it was not permitted by election statute. And so consequently, I understand from this article that the park board has chosen not to pursue any kind of a referendum. That's how I infer this. That's a very nuanced statement, and it's nuanced because what in fact the Park District's attorney had said was that the board, that the electorate could not compel the board to do a referendum. However, the board could choose to do a referendum. And that's within the statutes for the state of Illinois. Park district, unlike the village or perhaps townships, the electorate can't be compelled. We can't compel you to do that.
Thank
but
you,
you could
Mark.
do that.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Bonnie Shaw. I live at 219 East Scranton. And I'm going to read a few words from the 2016 Lake Bluff Village Strategic Marketing Plan. It says that the vocabulary that describes our community and that we want to put forward is a casual, locale, comfort, down to earth, easygoing, low pressure, laid back, unpretentious. Those are all the things that the Lake Bluff Golf Course are to new, young, inexperienced golfers. It's also something you've heard a number of experienced golfers say. They love the design of the course. The course allows Park District residents, the public as a whole, our residents young and old. I've stated before, I've golfed with women in their 80s. I've only recently started golfing regularly. The golf course, the Lake Bluff Golf Course is affordable, active recreation, and social opportunity where you do spend a lot of time with people you don't know, and you get to know them. And it gives us that friendly, welcoming vibe of a community that we want here in Lake Bluff. We already have 80 acres of Lake Bluff open lands in Lake Bluff alone. That is also contiguous to an additional 200 acres of Lake Forest open lands. We only have one place where neighbors become friends by spending 4 hours walking, talking, and chasing a small white ball, or maybe in the winter, enjoying the beauty of the golf course while walking with their dog or cross-country skiing. I also agree that there needs to be a plan for funding. And I have a few suggestions. Number one, page 10 of the Land Use Citizen Task Force states, a sale of up to 4 acres of Lake Bluff Park District-owned property could happen without a referendum. There's got to be some land that someone's willing to build some houses in Lake Bluff. Additionally, the Lake Bluff Golf Course was run by the Lake Bluff Park District itself. I watched the October 2018 meeting of the Park District. It was repeatedly stated that $2.1 million would be saved. Where is that money? Could that be used to address the pool issues? Grants, and more grants, increasing non-resident use of our facilities. For example, Lake Forest Beach charges $25 per person to use their beach today for non-residents. Lastly, great opportunity at the golf course to generate marketing and advertising revenue, golf hole sponsorships, sponsorship of the beverage cart, and I recommend you hire a local student over the summer as an intern for sales and marketing to generate some revenue. So I hope those things help. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Deb Fisher. I live on East Prospect. I support saving the golf course. I support the autonomy of the Park District. I support the Park District Board. I've spoken before. If you've got questions on anything, why I support it, please reach out to me. There's a website that has a lot of the reasoning behind it, Protect Lake Bluff, protectlbparks.com. There's a Facebook group called Protect the Lake Bluff Golf Course. It's got almost 650 members now. Last night I tried to figure out how we got here. Why is the community so at odds on this issue, and why are neighbors I respect still mouthing misinformation and debunked statements as facts? I decided to go back to the beginning to try to figure it out. How did we get here? I think because presentations were made that were not maybe originally well vetted. Fairy tales were told, in my opinion, about great treasures that Lake Bluff could reap, except that they weren't accurate, and misinformations have not been corrected since. My understanding is you listened, you reviewed the information they presented in early 2021 and said, no thanks, this is not in Lake Bluff's best interest. You already made the decision once, and that decision was accurate. So why is so much misinformation still floating around in the community? I implore all of you to listen again, or for the first time, to the October 6, 2021 meeting of the Lake Bluff Village Sustainability and Community Engagement Ad Hoc Committee, where a lot of information was put out that is now proven to be, through the task force and through all the material that's been generated, it's been proven to be inaccurate, but the inaccuracies are still continuing today. In that meeting, they did talk about a few things that I think are realistic. Lake Bluff doesn't have to do it, that was said. SMC does not ever force its projects. We work as a partner, that was said. There are 2 sites on the naval base that can be used, that was said. So I think we're still fighting misconceptions, inaccuracies, and I'm not sure what agenda perhaps. Park Board, you turned this down once, please turn it down again. Creative ideas are wonderful in terms of funding, but you had a task force spend 8 months reviewing the material, you've got the data. Can you please make the decision, not let this dissension continue? I don't think it's fair to straddle Lake Bluff with the risk. Please remember your mission. You're stewards of a park district. You're not stewards of a hedge fund. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bob Gamruth. I live in Tangley Oaks. I've lived there for 42 years. I've been coming to meetings like this off and on for 42 years. I supported the golf course for 25 of those 42 years. I got up, spoke. I can't support it anymore. The last 15 years, there's no pro, there's no management to speak of. You no longer have a cafe. It's become an albatross to the community, in my view. Financially, it's been going downhill steadily. They used to promote the course. They used to get policemen from the city of Chicago to play. They don't promote, or very little promotion anymore. The course is outdated. It can't compete with Thunderhawk, with some of the new links courses. They hire consultants, they raise the price, they cut the costs, and it just becomes less and less competitive. It reminds me of Sears, Montgomery Ward, and Kmart, to just name a few. The handwriting's on the wall. This course is not going to make it. Somebody's got to have the fortitude to make the decision. I think we have an alternative that makes a lot more sense, but the golf course, the handwriting's on the wall. Thank you for your service. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Constance McCabe. I live in the sanctuary in Lake Bluff. Debt sends shivers down the spine of everyone trying to balance a budget, be they homeowner or park board. Yet the Lake Bluff Park Board has made no plans on how to meet its looming capital needs for the pool, beach, and golf course. Their only choice would seem to be more debt or a tax referendum, a frequent topic of Park Board meetings, until they realized they couldn't ask for millions at the same time they're summarily rejecting millions, so they stopped talking about it. But the issues have not gone away, and they have not found a solution for the looming crisis. When the Land Use Task Force asked the Park Board for its plan for capital expenditures, it could not produce one. Pool capital needs are estimated at $2 to $4 million, while the beach needs $4 to $6 million. Both of these prized facilities are used by a majority of Lake Bluff residents and are defining elements of our community. Our capital needs so concern the Park Board that it hired referendum consultants beyond your base and agreed to pay them $30,000 in 2021 to aid its efforts to convince residents that a tax referendum was needed. But a tax referendum could be avoided with the help of Stormwater Management's proposal, which could provide enough money to solve the capital expenditures problem. Much needed improvements can be made to the pool and the beach, but only if the park board acts now. The park board could transform the 150 acres of the golf club, which comprise 70% of the park's district land, and dedicate 100 acres to wetlands to raise money and allocate 50 acres of land for recreational use by the majority of residents. More residents would benefit from a dog park, playing fields, and walking trails than the 8% who benefit from the golf course. That's right, currently 70% of the park district's lands are used by merely 8% of residents. SMC and its engineering consultants have proven track records of success building wetlands for many years, and will work with the park board to design a wetland and pay the cost to build that wetlands. They're willing to spend millions to build a wetlands, but the clock is ticking on this offer. The park board must act now to follow the fiscally responsible path to meet its debt and capital needs and serve the majority of Lake Bluff residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sam Dolans. I'm at 116 East Washington, and I moved here a year and a half ago with my wife and 2 kids. And so, although some of the technical details and especially the long-term background knowledge that a lot of the speakers today have, I can't really, I'm not on, I don't have the same background. I do believe I can hopefully provide some value with the perspective of somebody looking to move here. And it's absurd, the number of people my age who have, I know, who have been looking for houses these past couple of years. And I have close friends and family members who play golf. I personally don't, but the last thing I want to do is take away an asset that other people value, right? That's not what it's about. The point is that as the car counting comment actually sort of illustrated accidentally, is that it's a regional asset. None of my friends who are avid golfers care if they're 5 minutes from a golf course versus 15 minutes from a golf course. That is just completely not a factor for them whatsoever. And that's where those cars come from. It's a regional asset. The beach and the schools and the parks, those are local assets. Lots of people walk and bike to those. I do every day. My kids do multiple times a day. And it's those things that really draw the whole community and our local assets. And so, it's just really not a factor in when people are looking for where they want to live. The other thing to think about is that I just keep coming back to is the fact that it's an enormous amount of the Park District's land. I was really quite shocked when I first saw the boundaries on the maps, like how much of the Park District's land is the golf course versus the percent of the community that uses it. And to me, that is pretty fundamental, and it's been brought up before, but I just like to emphasize that. And then the other thing that I'm concerned about, as I intend to live here forever, right? The potential, the golf course itself is as like a long-term asset is going to have costs. Like the golf course itself is going to need capital investment. And the other thing I'm concerned about is a return to the pre-pandemic market conditions for golf. I'm not sure that the usage that we've seen the last couple of years is really sustainable when the years prior to the pandemic were considerably lower. And the last thing to consider is that the assets that everybody looking for a house here are definitely going to check out are, the beach is a huge factor, and then the schools. And we have an opportunity to enhance the assets that our schools have by having, more, community friendly. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for your service. John Minorini, 140 Oak Terrace. So this town has wetland preserves, parks, golf course, pool, soccer fields, baseball fields, paddle court, playground, beach, fitness centers. It offers everything that these people want. They ask for things that they want to put here. We already have them in our parks. So, and for some misleading information that came out tonight, first of all, this is a public golf course. It does not need $5 million worth of bunker repair unless this was going to be a private club. So let's take that off the record. Does not need $5 million worth of repairs. Okay, the flooding issue, the reserve people seem to be bothered by the flooding issue. I've been playing here for 20 years. It floods maybe once or twice a year. The course is open 8 months out of the year minimum. Open every day, never closed. So if it floods and it closes for a week, big deal. No lost revenue, misinformation. We also do not compete with other golf courses. We get 30,000 rounds a year, plenty of golf. Many people like golf. We're not competing with anybody. So over the last several weeks, I've listened to public comments. I've heard, stories from the pro golf side, endless stories from the pro golf side about grandparents playing golf with their grandkids, parents playing golf with their kids, kids going out playing on their own, groups of retired men meeting and playing together on Wednesday mornings, young men playing golf on Tuesday evenings. I've heard stories from women who meet for Tuesday and Friday morning golf leagues. I've heard about kids from elementary school that go to the golf course for golf lessons after school. I've heard and experienced the fact that this golf course is very active. It has 60 to 80 cars a day. And I make it a point to look at the Oriole Grove parking lot, which I've never seen more than 2 cars in that parking lot. So when people start saying this only gets 8% of the residents, what percent of the residents are using our open lands? Do the residents know that there is 81 acres of open lands right over there and nobody uses them? From the preserve side, their stories. I have not heard a single personal story about anyone going to Oriole Grove Preserve with their kids or their dogs, enjoying a great walk in the park.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else from the floor who would like to speak?
Hi, everyone. Carrie Wells. So I just want to say this, that yes, there could be a short-term gain from the SMC proposal. We might see that money in lots of years, perhaps 7 years, perhaps 10. It does not offset the long-term financial risk that we are putting this park district in forever. I've heard this word perpetuity in perpetuity for lots of times. So I would ask everyone to please do the research on the long-term financial impact, because it does not equate to the short-term gain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Curtis Skinner. I've been playing golf for about 53 years, about evenly split, 25 in Lake Forest, 25 in Lake Bluff. I am kind of in shock that how many times I've heard how much this golf course floods. I can tell you, and it still happens to this day, the second, the third, the fourth hole at Deer Path flood. Every time there's a big rain, it's been like that for 50 years. They've done a lot of stuff to it. They've reconfigured fairways. It still floods every time there's a big rain. So you just need to get over yourself. If you got a golf course and it rains 7 inches or 5 inches or whatever it does, the golf course is going to flood. The last time this golf course was flooded, Exmoor was closed, Bobolink was closed, Deer Path was closed. So I don't know why we're singling out this particular golf course as having a flooding problem. That's first of all. The other thing is, there's clearly a lot of people in this room that have researched this and know a lot more than I do, which is why I would like to put this on the shoulders of the Park District Board, because I believe that you guys are the most informed to make a decision. I've heard a lot about 8% of the people in this town use the golf course. John just mentioned what percentage use the pool, what percentage use the beach. We also hear about the capital improvements the golf course needs. We're now hearing about the capital improvements that are ongoing and will be ongoing for the beach, for the pool. And so to single out the golf course as needing capital expenditures, I think is not quite fair. The other thing that has crossed my mind, and I've been to a couple of these meetings, is that I know there's money that can come in from this flood alleviation thing, but no one seems to want to talk about A, the failure rate of wetlands, and B, the cost of maintaining the wetlands in perpetuity. Everyone overlooks that. Everybody stands up here and says, these are the facts, these are the facts. They're not the facts, because no one knows those facts, because it's in the future and no one knows the cost of maintaining that. Anybody that says they do either has a crystal ball or they're lying. So there we go.
Thank you. Please, I'm going to ask everyone to hold their applause. I appreciate that.
Hi, Matthew Kerouac. I live in West Terrace. And in about a year, we're going to see bulldozers at Harrison House. And maybe in about a year, we're going to see bulldozers at the golf course. It's going to be a very sad time for us. So I just want to put that image out there for us, that our solution sometimes is to tear things down that we fail to plan ahead for. 12 years ago when I moved here, I spoke in front of the village board about what kind of a failure this development's going to be at Stonebridge. And here we are. It's an empty, very sad situation for all of us. I mean, such memories people made there. I just fear that we have the same situation possibly happening here if we don't have the correct plan. I understand the money that we need as a village and the potential that we have. One idea that I haven't heard is, instead of using the grounds of the golf course to make money, let's use the rounds of the golf course. We have 30,000 rounds a year. I know we have a contract with Golf Visions. If we said, can we tack on $5 on top of that, every year we'd be pulling in $1.5 million without any effort, without destroying any assets of our community. And that would be in perpetuity, or whatever that large word was that I can't pronounce right now. If we could do that, in 5 years, we'd have $7.5 million that would come to the Park District to be used for the other assets, while maintaining something that a lot of us use on a regular basis, and we don't use other of the assets. And I wouldn't want to see those torn down for the golf course. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening. I'm Kurt Wolford, SMC Executive Director, and I've been listening to the public meetings, and I'd like to offer some of my comments. For over the 2 years, SMC has been meeting monthly with our project partners to talk about the technical aspects and the funding opportunities for our Route 41 drainage project to keep the roadway open and to reduce catastrophic flooding experienced by businesses and residents in the area. Our project requires 40 acre-feet of compensatory storage. SMC contacted the Park District in January 2021, 18 months ago, to discuss potential opportunities and options to benefit the golf course as part of this project. In June of last year, SMC requested a non-binding letter of intent or support from the Park District for a Department of Defense grant. The Park District did not want to submit a non-binding letter, and we missed that grant opportunity. We also received a congressional appropriation for $10.4 million FEMA grant. This appropriation will expire soon, and SMC has again requested a non-binding letter from the Park District that would state your willingness to participate in the project. Additional state and federal funding sources remain available. SMC has worked cooperatively with the Park District as early as 2012 to establish compensatory storage on the golf course, along with recorded stormwater covenants by deed, and I have handouts. If wetlands are restored on the property, the need for compensatory storage becomes less. The western half of the golf course was a wetland for thousands of years. I have copies of a 100-year-old wetland delineation of the property. SMC also administers the Wetland Restoration Fund for the county as an option for mitigation when there's no mitigation credits available. Last week, the commission approved an increase to our fee schedule. The fee for the North Branch watershed is now $181,500 per acre. In 2008, SMC and Libertyville Township worked together with a mitigation banker to establish a multi-objective solution to mitigate flooding of local homes and included the creation of the Atkinson Wetland Mitigation Bank. Libertyville Township is working on their third wetland mitigation bank. SMC remains interested in working with the Park District on a mutually beneficial solution. We are asking for a yes or a no and are available to come down, sit down, work cooperatively as project partners. We continue to meet every month with all of our project partners and are confident that any questions for the Park District has had and can be answered in our working group. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Susan Ryder, 456, here as a private citizen. I just wanted to reiterate what Mr. Wolford just said. The best estimate of what these credits are going for is now $181,000. No promises, but the gentleman who suggested that 120 was an overestimate, I think is clearly behind on his data. 181,000. I also want to correct that 30,000 times $5 is $150,000, not $1.5 million. So the numbers that Mr. Kerouac pointed out are off by a factor of 10. Love to hear creative ideas. I stood though to make one main point, and that is the point that your attorney made last week. The citizens group who submitted a petition to you had hopes that you would interpret the statute in the way that we did, but we understand why you interpreted it differently, and found that you had no obligation to send the referendum that we proposed up. We understand that. That same limitation, as your own attorney pointed out, does not exist for the municipality. There is, in fact, a very specific statute that says the municipality must send it up. There's no discretion. There's no vote. There's no discretion. The one thing that your attorney also pointed out that I want to reiterate to everyone is that you have the power to submit your own referendum to the entire park board. What we have done as a citizens group is submit a referendum that will only go to Lake Bluff because that's the only clear part of the statute, as your attorney pointed out. What you could do is do a referendum so that everybody could voice their opinion. Everybody in the Park District, we're still asking, as we have been for the last 12 months, that you do so. Finally, I would submit that the reason we're here is not what Ms. Fisher pointed out, but instead, June 28th meeting, where you refused to listen to this proposal, where you shushed a public official who was trying to talk to you about this proposal. That is why this got ugly. That is why we're here.
Thank you. Okay, we'll turn to anyone who's on Zoom who would like to speak.
Sarah Duncan.
Hi, my name is Sarah Duncan, and I just wanted to pop in after so many other people have spoken. We lived in Lake Bluff from 2005 to 2007, where we moved to Austin, Texas, and we actually lived on a golf course, a Fred Couples designed golf course. And since then, we missed Lake Bluff so much that we voluntarily moved back. And we moved back not for the golf, but for the friendly, laid back, awesome community and for the beach. And my son is a golfer. He learned to golf at the Lake Bluff Golf Course, but he usually spends most of his time either at Deer Path or North Chicago. We use the golf course in the winter to run our dogs. So I would love to see a dog park. That would be amazing. But even though I am not personally a golfer, I am a taxpayer, as we all are in this village. And I know this question has been posed numerous times tonight, but I've read the complete land use report and I still do not see how the park district proposes to pay for not only the ongoing debt of the golf course, but the pool and the beach, which are also very important to our local community. So I do believe that this cannot be decided without knowing how those things are going to be paid for. And I know this question has been asked, but I would like to hear it in the absence of not being allowed a referendum, which I'm extremely disappointed by, because we are a very intelligent, smart community, which is one of the many things that I love about this. So hopefully we will be able to see an answer to that question soon. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do apologize. I will call out time just in case people can't see that. We'll go to the next person.
Chris Johnson.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Chris Johnson. I live in Highland Park and I'm a volunteer with the local Sierra Club here in Lake County. I chose to speak because I heard about the proposal by SMC to restore wetlands on or near the Lake Bluff Golf Course. And I would just like to speak to the environmental, recreational, and economic benefits of wetlands. First of all, as has become clear in this discussion tonight, wetlands play a very important role in flood abatement, which all of us on the North Shore are dealing with. So I myself live about a quarter mile from the Skokie River, and flooding is definitely an issue up and down Route 41. According to the EPA, US flood damages average $2 billion a year. A wetland, the average wetland, stores 3 acre-feet of water. Second, wetlands cleanse water by intercepting runoff from surfaces prior to reaching open water and removing pollutants through physical, chemical, and biological processes. They are a cost-effective alternative to traditional wastewater and stormwater treatment options. Third, wetlands can help control erosion. They protect shorelines and stream banks, such as the banks of the Skokie River. The roots of wetland plants hold soil in place and can reduce the velocity of stream or river currents. Fourth, wetlands provide habitat for threatened and endangered species. Wetlands make up an estimated 5% of the land area of the lower 48 states, yet more than 1/3 of threatened and endangered species live only in wetlands. Fifth, wetlands can positively impact water supply, serving as reservoirs for the watershed and releasing retained water into surface water and groundwater supplies. Sixth, healthy wetlands help hold in check mosquito populations. Certain birds, frosh, fish, and insects live in these wetlands and feed on mosquito larvae. Seventh, wetlands can become a destination for recreational activities. I happen to live across the street from the Highland Park Nature Preserve, and which was a golf course years ago and has been converted and restored into wetlands, savanna, and prairie. Not only has that reduced flooding, but it's become a magnet for birders, hikers, bikers, photographers, and kids. Finally, there are the economic benefits that you've been talking about, the wetland mitigation, but also nobody has mentioned the economic toll of the increasing flooding that SMC has predicted for the future. So thanks very much for listening.
Thank you. Is there someone else?
Hi, I am Keelan. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, I am Keelan Osterline, and I go to Lake Bluff Middle School. I do like golf, although I consider myself a
We lost your audio. Can you try again?
Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Okay. Hi, I am Keelan Osterline, and I go to Lake Bluff Middle School. I do like golf, although I consider myself a volleyball player. I keep hearing from adult golfers who talk about living in Lake Bluff forever and say that they've made memories for years and years and are passionate about protecting the golf course. I may only be 13, but I have made memories at the beach and I am passionate about protecting the beach. I haven't heard anything about what you are doing to protect the beach, the whole reason this community was created, and the thing I love most about living here. I heard at one meeting, someone said that the flooding issues are not our problem and North Chicago should fix it. This is our problem. Protecting the golf course for the few is all about the me and not about the we. We need a change that does not cost the community more money. We need to fix it so it doesn't flood. We need to protect our environment. We need to keep our beach. Instead, we need a solution for all of us. We need a solution to address the problem and protect the beach. Oh, and by the way, I would love a science class in a preserve. Thank you.
Thank you. I know there is one person here who does like to speak. Can I ask first? We'll just finish everybody online. Thank you.
Gary Doyle.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Gary Doyle, 25-year resident of Lake Bluff. By the way, that doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if someone's lived here 25 years or 2 months. Every Lake Bluffer's opinion on this should matter equally. I've watched this process closely the last 6 months, and I'll start by asking a simple question. Why is everyone so scared of a vote? The golf people seem scared. In all the meetings on this, not a single one has come forward and advocated for a vote. Not one. The board seems scared. You appear to be trying to find every way possible to squash a referendum, from strained legal reasoning to appealing to the village president, even though a referendum would be strictly advisory and just another data point for you to make a decision. I've also heard said a lot, including by someone tonight, that people who haven't studied this issue closely enough shouldn't be allowed to vote on it. That is undemocratic and frankly insulting. It's like saying someone shouldn't be able to vote for president if they haven't studied the issues closely enough. If mastery of the issues was the benchmark, maybe 2% of us would be allowed to vote. We can handle disagreement. We're not children. There's also been a lot of talk about golfers, including a couple of the speakers tonight, about how much they like golf and the memories and joy it's provided. I understand and respect that, but let me ask you, do the memories that would be made at the preserve have any less value? What about fishing with my grandson, or watching my granddaughter play soccer, or my grandkids learning something about the environment from an interactive display? Then there are the scare tactics. Oh my gosh, the plants might not grow, the government will mess this up, oh, the risks, etc. Even though the fact is the failure rate of wetlands is extremely low. If only there was less fear of the unknown with this and more appetite for possibility, for walking trails, bike paths, fishing ponds, soccer fields, a dog park, and on and on and on. And by the way, Oriole Preserve, which is often brought up as a comparison, has none of these. You have to walk a mile just to get to open space. The folks who talk about 2 cars in the parking lot should really go back and check it out sometime. There is no comparison. Now let's talk legacy, just because there's a lot of talk about that too. If your legacy was you said no to a gift, in this case from the government, to turn this massive piece of property from a single-use resource 8% of us use to one all of us can enjoy, well, let's just say I wouldn't want that on my tombstone. Finally, Jennifer, you talked the last couple meetings about consideration and respect. I agree, so let's talk about that. A week and a half ago at the Criterion bike race, I was attacked verbally and publicly by a member of this board, unprovoked by me. I've never met this person, don't know her, yet was mocked and yelled at by her. I bring this up only because it brings up the issue of entrenched bias. Would I have gotten yelled at if I was a proponent of the golf course? So again, I'm asking for a referendum to vote yes to the Lake Bluff Preserve because of the financial windfall, because it's the last chance to show your neutrality.
Is there anyone else online?
That's everybody.
Thank you. And we do have one person who would like to speak here at the gym.
Hello, my name is Carter Horan. I'm a 21-year-old. I actually just walked in and I saw, I'm not sure earlier in terms of kids my age or kind of younger generation, so I just kind of wanted to offer my 2 cents. As someone who didn't play a ton of golf growing up, I think since COVID, that kind of had a lot of people in my generation and younger kids start playing golf, and I think, and I'm not going to act like I know the economic and logistical sense of the golf course and how they're doing now because I haven't heard great things, but I think with Deer Path and the way that they've renovated their course in the past, I think it offers a lot for Lake Bluff to strive for the future. Especially pointing this out with clubs like Shore Acres and Knollwood and places that we couldn't necessarily play growing up. Knollwood's offered a great place for us in terms of growing up, and I think post-COVID with people playing more golf, that's only going to increase. And yeah, I think in terms of open lands, I understand that people are passionate about it. I think open lands on Green Bay behind those houses, and then kind of like the nice beach area and the areas available in Lake Forest offer great places for people to hang out with their kids, walk their dog, go fishing. So I just wanted to give my sense of point as a 21-year-old who's likely going to raise my kids here.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else, so I think we will conclude that portion of the agenda. I want to thank the gentleman who spoke earlier who stole my line about our mission statement, because that really is why we're here, because of the mission and because of the vision of where we are with the Park District and our responsibility as a Park Board of Stewards. I heard a lot of comments, I'm sure we all did tonight, about the capital needs of the Park District, about the assets that we have here, and about the vision that everyone here has as part of the community. I really want to thank everybody for being hardy and sturdy and seeing these same faces here time and time again, that you're giving up an evening with your family, that you're giving up a beautiful summer night to be here, shows that you are committed, that you are passionate about this, that you go back and watch YouTube videos from 2018 or read our minutes from years ago shows your dedication to this. But most important, thank you for people who are passionate and are volunteering their time to work toward where we can be as a park district. And I'm very, very appreciative of that. And so this is concluding our second public forum. As a board, we are committed for continued conversation as we go, because there will always be a time for public comment on our meetings. Okay. And so concluding, may I have a motion, please, to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you again, everyone, for tonight.